Welcome on into the AZ Wildcats podcast. Unfortunately, we no longer have Kevin with us. He was let go, but that's okay. We're still going to have a great time today. Jam-packed show. We got Justin Spears in studio stepping in. Don't go anywhere. Welcome on in, guys, to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I am, of course, your host, Damon Fairall, and I am joined today by my guy, Justin Spears. No Kevin Thomas today, but that's going to be all right. We're still going to have a great time with Justin. We are here live from HQ2 here in downtown Phoenix at lovely PHNX Studios. And Justin, yeah, we got a lot to talk about today when it comes to Arizona athletics. Got some football stuff on the horizon, a little bit of basketball recruiting, and then as well as some, baseball and softball, quick hitters that I think have, just been kind of living in the airspace of Arizona athletics here. But to start things off, just how are we doing today, Justin?
Things are solid, man. The weather in Tucson is gorgeous down here. It's that beautiful time of year where it's very warm. You don't really need jackets or cold gear. It's not crazy hot, but you could definitely feel the weather warming up here. It's just a beautiful time in Tucson, Arizona. Hopefully everyone had a very safe Memorial Day weekend. And man, I'm excited to join you. Usually it's me and Kevin, and Damon's away.
Yep.
And now it's you and I, Dame, and Kevin's away. So this is we're reaching uncharted territories here. I'm excited.
How the turntables, and I got my guy here. Oops. I keep getting.
Look at that guy. Who's that handsome devil in the background?
Saul Bookman here, in studio. What a treat when we get to see Saul Bookman in studio. But of course, Justin, Saul, go way back. Good buddies there. But yeah, Justin, weather's nice outside. Tucson's a little nicer than Phoenix right now. Phoenix a little hot, but it is how the turntables in regards to Kevin usually being the guy that's here, the staple of this show, the rock that is, the host of the AZ Wildcats podcast, and Mr. Vacations over here, Damon. Here I am, where Kevin just gets a random off day in the middle of the week.
I know, man. I know. But you know what, Kevin, he needs a vacay. He needs to take some time off and recharge. And now that, we're in May / approaching June, this is the time of year where us sports writers and sports media personalities, this is usually when we dip out for the summer. Fun fact about Saul Bookman, we just saw him in the background.
I love
I always tell people the first time that I have ever met Saul, it was over the phone. He was just starting at the U of A, was diving into media and journalism. And, I had developed, a good reputation as a student journalist. And when Saul started doing this media thing, he wanted to get a hold of me. And all of a sudden, I'm just chilling in my apartment. Shout out to the Stone Avenue Standard between Speedway and Grant, right across from the establishment formerly known as the Wildcat House, which is now Brother John's Barbecue. My apartment balcony, when you walked out, you could see the old Bum Steer building, which had concerts. It was a bar. It looked like a big red barn, but it had a lot of metal concerts and metal events in there. It was a pretty crazy event. But anyways, I was just chilling in my house, and all of a sudden I see an area code. I think it was from Florida or something like that. And I answer it, and he's like, "Hey, so I heard, you're really involved in journalism and, sports media at the U of A. I would love to get involved." And I was like, "Yeah, man. I mean, I'm always down to partner up with people." And he introduced himself as Saul Bookman. And I was like, "Wait, hold on." At that time, this was when Breaking Bad had just finished.
Yeah.
Dude, I thought I was getting punked. I was like, "Hold on. your name is what? And all I kept thinking about was Better Call Saul, the lawyer, this and that. And come to find out, I meet him. I'm like, oh wow, you're actually Saul Bookman,
Yeah.
not Saul Goodman. Okay, so you're a real person. No, Saul's a great dude. I mean, what he's been able to do with PHNX has been truly fantastic, and his managerial duties with All City Network has also been just amazing to watch. You guys have a great leader. And he is one of the best dudes I have ever known. So, yeah, shout out to my guy, Saul. We've come a long way from me looking at my phone, be like, what the hell is this? Wait, hold on. I'm being pranked right now. Now this guy is one of my best friends in the whole world. So, shout out to my guy.
How we don't have a Better Call Saul segment, on this fine program is beyond me, Justin. But yeah, certainly, it's Saul is, he's the one that brought me in here. I remember similarly, like I get a phone call just like, hey, what are you doing right now? I was interested in, I had some connections, to get in the door here and get it, talk to him. But he was just like, what are you doing right now? You free? And I was like, yeah, I guess I just got home from school, came into the office and got offered the job on the spot pretty quick. Then that's, if you know Saul, that's a pretty Saul story. But Justin, I did want to shout out your article that you did on Ronnie Palmer for Tucson.com, Arizona Daily Star. You did a feature on Ronnie Palmer, former Arizona football player, and, just kind of his homecoming to Arizona. I feel like a lot's been made of like a guy like Joe Salvea coming home, but Ronnie Palmer, maybe a little bit more under-heralded. So just kind of what about Ronnie Palmer could you tell the folks at home, just from sitting down and talking to him?
Well, I mean, when you look at the coaching staff and the connections to the University of Arizona, even going back to the Jed Fish era when he had Chuck Cecil on staff, when he had Ricky Hunley as well on staff. He had obviously Brandon Sanders is still there. It's always nice to have familiar faces connected to the program and be a part of your staff. But the one thing that is interesting about Ronnie is he's a Mike Stoops era guy. And you don't really see too many of those guys come back to the U of A. As a matter of fact, I can't really remember a Mike Stoops era player being a coach at the U of A. With Dick Tomey. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear all the dinging. This freaking group chat is popping off because we're all trying to buy into a baseball pool for college baseball, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. But yeah, Ronnie Palmer was, a guy that was, a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. He's from the Houston area. And, he told me the story of when he was being recruited by Arizona. And when he was first getting attention by the U of A, it was under the previous regime of John Mackovic. And John Mackovic, I mean, you ask any Arizona football fan, they do not want to remember that era at all. That was a very bad time. As a matter of fact, it is the only era that could rival the Kevin Sumlin era, and that's really saying something. It might even be worse when you think about it because of the fall from grace, right? Arizona with Dick Tomey, they were one of the best college football programs on the West Coast. And then, they had a bad season in 1999 or no, 2000 with Dick Tomey. And there was kind of like they nudged him out the door and they fired Dick Tomey and they hired John Mackovic, who was originally at Texas beforehand. And they sucked. I mean, they were just so bad. The culture was bad. John Mackovic told Antonio Pierce and, other players who were getting ready for the NFL, like, yeah, you can't train here. You can't practice. You can't get ready for the pros here. And that left a sour taste in Antonio Pierce's mouth. And, he resented the program. And because of John Mackovic's direction, Arizona football just really took a hit in their reputation. And so when Ronnie Palmer was first getting recruited by Arizona, he would see the block A and he would see the letters from Tucson and be like, okay, whatever, just throw it into the pile. He was being recruited by LSU. He was being recruited by Notre Dame. He was being recruited by, I think, Oklahoma at the time. Like a lot of well-known programs were going after Ronnie Palmer, but he grew up an Oklahoma fan. And at that time, Bob Stoops was the head coach of the Sooners. His younger brother, Mike, was the defensive coordinator and was a defensive assistant with the Sooners. And he wanted to play for the Stoops brand. And when he saw Mike Stoops go to the University of Arizona and Arizona still maintained that connection and still recruited Ronnie, that's when he was like, okay, maybe Arizona might be the place for me. And it was Mike Stoops and Eric Wolford, who was an assistant coach for the Wildcats. And they went to go visit Ronnie Palmer at his work in Houston. Ronnie was working at a Pizza Hut / Taco Bell fusion restaurant. I remember back in the day when they would combine those restaurants. And, he was working the front, and all of a sudden Mike Stoops comes in and they were like, yeah, we would love to do a home visit with you. And so he got off of work, raced home to clean up. They did the home visit there. And that's when he realized that he wanted to, seriously consider Arizona. And then he went out on the visit. And during the official visit, there were like 8 or 9 other players from Texas. And Arizona under Mike Stoops was really making a concerted effort to recruit the state of Texas. And Ronnie noticed that. And he felt comfortable going to Arizona, where, even though that he was going away from Texas, he was still going to an environment where there were people there that talked like him, that knows exactly what he's going through as a guy who grew up in the South. And he wanted to be a part of that. And he took some licks early on. Like, he thought he was good enough to start as a freshman. And then Tim Kish said, hey, hold your ego at the door, or check your ego at the door. And eventually he worked into becoming a mainstay in Arizona's defense. And he was a part of the build, right? He got there in 2004, and all of a sudden Arizona, they were trending on, the right direction, but they were still bad. And then in 2008, he capped it with going to the, not the Alamo Bowl, the Las Vegas Bowl. And he was a team captain for that squad. And that meant a lot to him. And he loves Arizona. He loves the U of A. He loves his time here. He was so great playing for the Wildcats. His wife played softball for the University of Arizona. And Tucson means a lot to him. And eventually he got into playing professionally just for a few years. He signed with the Washington Redskins as an undrafted free agent. And then, oh my goodness, this freaking group chat. Hold on, Damon, can you hear it? Can you hear all the dinging?
I can a little bit, yes.
All right, I'm putting on the headphones. All right, I'm gonna turn on my headphones here because this is absolutely ridiculous. Of course, the guys that I'm all talking to decide to do all this as
this is like your close buddies, like just like your friends.
Yeah. It's okay. So the headphones are on.
I feel like every time, for me at least, my closest friends, they always just blow up my phone at the most inopportune time. I feel like that's when the group chat really gets popping, when I'm like live on air or something. Every time.
Yeah, these freaking degenerates are like, come on, be a part of this college baseball pool.
We need an answer right now.
Right. And I'm like, guys, I'm doing a podcast right now. And there's other people that are like, dude, I've only watched Arizona baseball this year. I'm not joining your freaking pool. And yeah, our buddy Michael is just going ham right now. But anyways, back to Ronnie Palmer. Ronnie was a great player at Arizona, 275 tackles for the Wildcats in 4 seasons. And, after he was done at the U of A, he decided to play professionally, signed with the Washington Redskins, played in the UFL. And after 3 years, when he realized, okay, I'm not really going anywhere with this pro football route, I needed to get into coaching. And he joined Arizona staff halfway through the year in 2011, which was the year that they fired Mike Stoops. And they brought in Rich Rodriguez right after that. And according to Ronnie Palmer, Rich Rod didn't even really want to give him the time of day to talk about the coaching at Arizona. And so he decided, okay, I'm going to go elsewhere. And he had roles at multiple colleges. His last stop, he was the head coach at Monterey Peninsula College. Spent the last 4 seasons there. They won championships. They were very successful. And, he's living in Northern California in Monterey. Like he can go to Pebble Beach. Like it's beautiful. And he's the head coach. But the opportunity to come to Arizona was just too good to pass up. And he is very familiar with Brent Brennan, because while he was at Monterey, Brennan was just up the road at San Jose State. And Brent recruited some of his guys. They've developed a relationship and a connection over the last few years. And Ronnie told me that, after watching Brent Brennan walk and talk and coach for the last 5 years, it was time for me to come back home to play or to coach for the Arizona Wildcats. And he's very excited. I thought he was going to be a linebackers coach, working with Danny G, the Arizona defensive coordinator, who's also, the linebackers coach too. But they brought in Josh Bringale, who played for Danny G at San Diego State, and Ronnie Palmer is a defensive line assistant along with Joe Salavea, who was also on that 2011 Arizona coaching staff. So those two are being reunited and they're working together. And going back to what I was saying originally, before the group chat started popping off, was this is so important because in the past few years, we've seen the connections with the Dick Tomey era. We've seen connections with the Larry Smith era. We haven't really seen that connection with the Mike Stoops era. And, while the Mike Stoops era, it had its losing seasons and, had some bad moments, but man, they were always competitive at home. I remember it felt like every year, even if they went 4-8 or 5-7, one of those wins was against a top 15 or a top 10 team at home. They were always competitive against the USC dynasty, and they churned out a bunch of NFL talent. I mean, you're looking at Antoine Cason, Rob Gronkowski is the big one, Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles. I mean, the list goes on and on of the great players who came through Arizona under Mike Stoops. And to see that representation now on Brent Brennan's staff, I think is a really special deal. And, Ronnie Palmer was one of my favorite defensive players of the Mike Stoops era. And it was definitely surreal to catch up with him and talk about his journey to Arizona, his playing career, and also his coaching journey as well.
Yeah, check out that article on Tucson.com, like I said, for the Arizona Daily Star. Of course, Justin always does great work over there whenever he writes an article, whenever he puts pen to paper. But I think just in terms of the Stoops era, it does feel like now these guys are finally getting to an age where they've established themselves in the coaching ranks. They have that experience level that, is oftentimes required when you want to coach at a school like Arizona. You got to have, the requisite, resume, I guess, for lack of a better term, to make it there. And, a guy like Ronnie Palmer coaches in the JUCO ranks for multiple years, wins championships, builds that resume, and now he's back home. It's just a great story. But Spears, I did want to put you on the spot here because you are the Arizona football guy. And I wanted to ask you, how many former Wildcats, this is to my counting, so, apologies if I missed out on anybody, but how many former Wildcats are now on staff? And I don't want to just go with the coaching staff. I'm going with, the entire Arizona football program. I went and checked the staff directory. Can you guess all of them?
Okay, so let's see here. Brandon Sanders, who is the high school football coordinator and also alumni relations guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put him on there. Chuck Cecil, he's still an assistant for the Wildcats, so you definitely got to put him on that list as well. Big Joe Salavea, I mean, shoot, he's the kind of the headliner for the staff. So let's see, Joe Salavea, Brandon Sanders, Ronnie Palmer, and Chuck Cecil. man, and I feel like I'm missing one big one, and it's going to kill me if I can't guess it.
We do have two
Okay.
more, I believe, and I'll be honest, they're both kind of big ones.
Okay. Well, Teddy Bruschi's not on the staff anymore.
No.
Which, I mean, he was never really on the staff because, I mean, he had a quote unquote advisor role, but I'm like, how much advising was Teddy Bruschi doing?
That was a classic
Oh,
Jed Fish. Like, this is, it's a great move on the outside looking in. And, really, Teddy isn't really doing anything, but I'm sure he gets a decent little chunk of change to put that in his bio on Twitter or whatever. I like that move.
How about Bobby Wade, wide
Yep.
receivers coach, who is the former all-time receiving yards leader, and that record was obviously broken by Tetairoa McMillan in the last year. That's all I got. Is there anybody else that I'm missing?
Yeah, so I know he's no longer a position coach, but on the staff directory, Ricky Hunley is still listed as the director of player relations and external development.
Oh,
So,
yes, that's right.
I believe we have 6 former Wildcats on staff, and I'm ready to give out some bonus points if you can get players/coaches that have familial connections to Arizona, like their parent or brother.
Like players on the team, if they
Yep.
have any connections. Well, you got to go walk on quarterback Mason Bray. His father is the late great Heath Bray, who passed away in the last year. Was a special teams captain, great player. I mean, Heath Bray did everything when he was at Arizona. So I'll put Bray in that mix as well. I can't put, I was going to say Spivey, but Spivey's dad played for the Tucson Sidewinders.
Yeah, it's close.
Oh, man. Okay, who do you got for me?
I got obviously Keon Burnett, right?
Chester
Burnett's
right.
son, back in the fold, and then Chester Burnett, friend of the program, and then of course Brad Brennan. That's a easy connection there.
Oh, yeah.
And then last one, a little bit of an under-heralded one, I think, Dejon Hinton, whose dad and uncle both played for U of A back in the day.
Yes, that's right. And I believe his dad also played at Pima as well. So not only is he a Wildcat, but this man played for the Pima Storm. They weren't the Aztecs back in the day. They were known as the Pima Storm. So, yeah, Dejon Hinton, that's a good one. And Arizona fans, get to know the name now. Maybe not this upcoming season, but the season after that in 2026, I think that Dejon Hinton's going to make a name for himself. He's going to be a great cornerback, maybe even a slot corner, nickelback type of player. He was really good at Hamilton. I know he's been banged up, but the coaches love him. They've been raving about him, and they love his potential. And I think he's going to have some great mentors in this upcoming season. Traydon Stukes, who's coming back from his season-ending leg injury from a year ago. He's, thankfully, for Arizona, as much as they wanted to have Traydon available last season, the 4-game redshirt rule is a blessing in disguise because, that Utah game, that was the 4th game of the season. He suffers a season-ending leg injury. He was able to preserve his final year of eligibility. So, I kind of look at the silver lining here for Arizona. Yeah, it sucked not having Traydon last year, but now this year you get to have a guy that, former Arizona DBs coach and defensive coordinator Dwayne Aquina called the best kept secret in college football. And he is a great nickel slot corner. He's great in coverage. He's also, one of Arizona's top open field tacklers. And I think him taking Dejon under his wing over this upcoming year, I think is really going to be beneficial for Dejon. So get to know the name now. Dejon Hinton, he will be a guy in the future for Arizona.
Absolutely love to hear that. We're going to get into a little bit more football talk. I had some anonymous quotes here for you, Justin, from our friends at Athlon Sports, talking some Big 12 and just kind of the vibes around the conference right now. We'll get into that right after the break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast. But first, I want to tell you guys about my friends over at Empire Today. Empire Today is the absolute best place to get your new flooring. I'm staring at some Empire Today flooring right as we speak, and it is absolutely pristine. And guess what, guys? We have a promo code for you. It is promo code PHNX. It's going to get you $350 off your new flooring at Empire Today. They are the flooring experts. This is not just something that they do. This is what they know. Eat, sleep, breathe flooring, just like we do with Arizona Athletics. Empire Today is with flooring. And that's why they beat out those big box stores. That's just one of the things they do is flooring. No, this is their specialty. Get a free in-home estimate today. They're going to come into your house, show you what that new flooring is going to look like in whatever room that you're looking at, whether it's a bedroom, kitchen, living room, whatever. And they're going to show you what it looks like with their virtual floor designer before you get it installed and make a massive purchase that you regret. That's why Empire Today is the absolute best. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHNX listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHNX. Yes, you heard that right. $350 discount with promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/PHNX for full details. That's one great way to save some money. Empire Today. Another great way to save some money is with Sanderson Ford, who is just dropping their from America for America pricing. It is employee pricing, and we are all getting to take a chunk off of it if that's something that you're into. Saving a little bit of money on buying a brand new Ford vehicle. We all know Ford. It is it's America's vehicle. They're the absolute best company when it comes to buying a car. You get your Ford F-150s, your Raptors, of course, the Broncos, my favorite, Mustangs, new Mustang EVs, Ford Escape, you name it. They have every single type of car that you could possibly want, and they are offering it at the best price over at Sanderson Ford. Sanderson Ford is the largest Ford dealership in America, not just in Arizona. And for that employee pricing, you're going to get the no pressure, no nonsense, no hassle, no nonsense. No markups, guarantee that they provide as always. But on top of that, they're going to offer you the prices that, a guy like Ron in the sales team over there, the price that he's going to get when he's buying a new Ford vehicle. And that's why Sanderson Ford is, they treat us like family because, that's how they treat everybody else. This offer excludes the 2025 Expedition, Super Duty, Raptor family, and Mustang. And Bronco specialty vehicles, one pair of tickets per household with valid drivers licensed to a July 6 game versus the Kansas City Royals. While supply of 200 tickets lasts, if you buy a new vehicle now, they're going to get you tickets to that July 6 game versus the Kansas City Royals. Sanderson Ford, stop in today. Let's get Justin back in here. Justin, like I said, I had some anonymous quotes here, which I always, is always funny, right? Like people that, don't feel comfortable saying the things that they're saying behind closed doors, but they do it behind an anonymous source. It's usually used in circumstances like this where, you could maybe provide some bulletin board material for the other team that you're talking about, especially when you're talking about conference opponents like in the Big 12. But the Athlon Sports did somewhat of an anonymous, I made it into my own ranking personally, and I'll read that for you here, Justin, based off of what they went with. There's Justin showing us his Athlon Sports magazine there. Hard copy magazine, Justin.
It is because I was the contributor. I was the guy who wrote the Arizona part in this magazine. Now, I need Arizona fans to understand something, okay? The information that is in there was written before spring football was even over with. Mm-hmm. So you're probably going to look at that depth chart and be like, what the hell? This guy has no idea what he's talking about. It was the best information that I had at the time. So if you read this later this summer, as we get into the season, there are some tweaks that I would make, but for the most part, it's all good information. There's just a couple of things that I would definitely change. Like I have Chuba Ma'ai as the projected starting center. And while he does have center experience, and he did play center at Long Beach Poly, he got a lot of run at left guard. So maybe that's the plan for Big Chuba. So people are going to be like, what? Chuba's playing left guard, not playing center. This Justin Spears guy has no idea what he's talking about. So I will make a few changes if I could. But yes, I did get the hard copy. I'm very excited to be a part of this project because Athlon is a very prestigious college football outlet. And so just honored to be a part of this magazine.
Yeah, certainly. And in regards to a depth chart, I mean, there's so many moving pieces, so many, so many musical chairs going on here with this roster, all the transfers in and out. Like it would be kind of impossible if you were batting 1,000 on something like that. I'll give you a
True.
pass, Justin.
True. And with the portal and everything, like it adds a whole another element to this.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You get about 30
it was
ins and
fun.
outs, like it's
Yeah.
it's it's hard to keep track of all of that. But I did want to get
That
into the
quote.
Arizona portion of this anonymous article that they wrote, where Big 12 coaches talk anonymously about their conference opponents in 2025. And so here I'll pull up the excerpt from the Arizona portion and read it off for you folks at home. It says, "It looks like they're on a decline. It was a tough task for anyone to keep that level of success that Jed Fish built at the end, but they've lost a ton of guys over the last 2 seasons. Their best player, Tetero McMillan, has gone to the NFL, and Noah Fifita has a lot of question marks around him. I think the success of this staff will depend on how fast they can find a quarterback who can run this new system. They're still portaling in a ton of new faces. I don't think they really have their identity or culture in place yet. Best case scenario here is that the new offensive system clicks right away and they can steal a few games." So, Justin, after reading all of that, what was just kind of, I guess, the first thing that pops out at you, that maybe you disagree with, or even that, just is seems like a point that, needs to have some emphasis on it?
I think it's honestly very fair. I think that quote is absolutely fair because Arizona went 4-8 last season, and they had just as many draft picks as they had wins.
Mm-hmm.
They sent out 4 draft picks, the most since 2008, and they had a couple sign as undrafted free agents. And you're like, man, they had 6 NFL players on this last team, and they only won 4 games. And yeah, he's right. Tetero McMillan, their best player, is now gone. So Noah Fifita, after relying on his buddy for the last couple of years, actually, I take that back. I wouldn't say it's fair to say that Noah relied on T-Mac in 2023 because he had great weapons around him and Jacob Cowing and Tanner McLaughlin and Michael Wiley. That offense was just absolutely stacked. But then he goes into the 2024 season and, he's got his buddy T-Mac, and those two have an unbreakable bond, right? They're inseparable, and they have a connection that you don't really see, right? They've been teammates with each other since middle school. And when a play breaks down and now Noah Fifita's doing scramble drill, like he knows where to find T-Mac, and T-Mac knows exactly where Noah is going to put that ball. But the problem with that is now that you don't have that connection anymore, what's next for Noah Fifita in his development as a quarterback? Now, here's the thing that I have some optimism about this offense is that now they have an identity. Last year, they did not have an identity, even with the pieces and the weapons that they had. After watching them in the spring, this offense has more intent. They have more purpose. And I'm willing to bet that they're not going to have a bunch of head-scratching plays on 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, and 4th and 1. Right? Like there were a number of times last year where all Arizona had to do was just get 1 yard, and they couldn't even do that. So I think that the offensive line is a big question. You lose Big Jonah, you lose Josh Baker, who is a mainstay anchor right there in the middle at center for the last 3 years. Wendell Moy goes to Tennessee, takes that big NIL check, and I get it because he's got a family to provide for, and he's a really good offensive lineman. So protection up front is going to be a big question going into this upcoming season. But my goodness, Damon, like the talent that they added in the portal, these are some pretty fun prospects. Like Javen Watley, this transfer from Chattanooga. I mean, he's maybe the fastest player on the team. Isaiah Mizell, the freshman from Orlando, he tracked at, I think, just over 22 miles per hour last year. And for those that don't really know about miles per hour and speed for football players, running at 22 miles per hour is that's pretty damn fast. And that's a freshman. And you also add in Chris Hudson, who is a former 4-star recruit that went to Oregon, went to Washington State, was pretty solid there. He might be, one of your starting wide receivers this year. Trey Spivey coming in from Kansas State. I mean, he is a big body. He looks the part of that X receiver that can replace T-Mac. And then they've gotten some positive, I guess, potential out of Brandon Phelps, who was a guy that played in Phoenix, is from Gilbert, played at American Leadership Academy, and ended his high school career as the all-time leader in receiving yards, receptions, and receiving touchdowns. Had one of the best high school careers out of any football player in Arizona. And in the spring, he ascended. And so, okay, how do you replace T-Mac? You can't, but you could do it with a couple of guys. And I think they're going to do it by committee with Trey Spivey and also Brandon Phelps. And then, like I said, Javen Watley, Chris Hudson, Luke Wysong, the transfer from New Mexico. What do all of these guys have in common? They all hail from track backgrounds. They're all speedsters. And so when you add that speed to what Seth Doege is trying to do in that no huddle up tempo system, yeah, you're not going to have T-Mac available. And it sucks that you don't have the best receiver in program history there to be productive. But I think collectively, the receiver group is better than what we saw last year, even with T-Mac. So I think the receivers are better. I think Ismail Mahdi out of Texas State, that transfer, I mean, he was considering Arkansas. He was getting attention from SEC schools, and he decided to come to Arizona. I think running backs are going to be really solid too. It's just the identity of this offense. You're going to see it from day one. And the long developing plays, the getting out of the huddle slowly and just not really looking like you have energy. Like Arizona looked lethargic a lot of the times last year. They looked slow. And the delayed handoffs and the play calling last year was some of the most confusing play calling I have ever seen at Arizona. And so I think Seth Doege, being the great offensive coordinator that he is, he understands Arizona's weaknesses and he understands their strengths. And he has said, okay, how do we maximize the strengths and get the most out of the people that we have available? And if any Arizona fan is concerned about Seth Doege talking like that, it's like, oh, well, okay, he's going to get the ball out quick because they don't have an offensive line. Well, I think that's what you have to do. I mean, and the protection, even with Big Jonah last year, it was a little wobbly, but there were no like quick plays, getting the ball out of Noah's hands in a quick manner. And that caught up to Arizona. And that's why he got sacked so many times. And that's why he led college football in throwaways. And I don't think you're going to see that this year. Seth Doege, when he was at Marshall, realized, okay, we got a dual threat quarterback. We have all these running pieces. Well, let's play to their strengths. And even though that Seth Doege is a Mike Leach guy, Marshall had more rushing yards than passing yards last year, and they ended up winning the Sun Belt Championship and were one of the best group of 5 teams last year. And a big part of that was because of Seth Doege. So Seth Doege knows what to do with what he's got, and I think that's going to give Arizona fans a lot of optimism. And another thing that I think is going to, give Arizona fans a lot of hope for next season is the fact that 5 out of the first 6 games are at home, and you're playing against Oklahoma State, which finished last in the conference last year. Kansas State is a very beatable opponent. I mean, they lost a bunch of guys to the transfer portal. They have Avery Johnson, who's a solid quarterback, but I don't think Kansas State is as good as they were last year. So there is hope. Now, Arizona, are they going to be one of the better teams in the Big 12? I mean, heck, ASU did it last year. Why not Arizona? I don't think that's going to be the case, but I think the doubters of the offense, I think they're going to be proven wrong. And you know what? If you want to cold take me in the season, feel free to do that.
Yeah, as far as the quote in general, I agree with you in the fact that I think that it's mostly fair. And I agree with it in the fact that much of my confidence level, and that's not to say that I'm like, going into this season being like, this team's going to compete for the conference, but where my confidence that does exist stems from is from that change in offensive coordinator from Dino Babers to Seth Doege. So I think that that last, sentence that they put there in Athlon regarding, the new offensive system could click right away. I think that rings true. Like, this is a offense that has added a bunch of new wide receivers. I think improves at the running back position as well with Monty, from going from Conley, who of course is, was a decent player, but I don't think really was that dynamic running back that you need to be your starter, and that Arizona probably expected in Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, but didn't get last season, right? So there was a bunch of extenuating circumstances. I think that Seth Doege move, like, I don't want to say that it's, low floor, high ceiling, because I don't think it is necessarily low floor, but I really do feel that it is a high ceiling type of hire where, like, Seth Doege could be a head coach type of, candidate if he really, like, figures this out early. And I think some people at Arizona probably, if he figures this thing out early, people are going to be pounding the drum for him to be the head coach, if, and that's all positive things. That's all, first world problems if you get there, because that means Arizona was pretty good. But I'm not concerned about replacing T-Mac, to your point earlier. I do think that the quote is maybe a little bit unfair to Noah, just in that sentence that says, I think the success of this staff will depend on how fast they can find a quarterback who can run this new system. Because everything that's from Seth Doege since his hire has been that Noah Fifita is that perfect quarterback for his system. This is the guy. This is a guy that, Seth Doege knew about when he was in high school, when he was coaching at USC, and had a lot of respect for him there. Like, I feel like maybe it's a little bit unfair to Noah Fifita, just because I think he is that established starter at Arizona, and there's a lot of trust being put into him. And I think that he could have a really good bounce back season. But in general, yes, I think, got to find that new offensive system. Obviously, you lose a lot of guys, lots of new, portal faces in the room here. But I think that the other fact is that the Big 12 is such a volatile conference, top to bottom. You saw it, as you mentioned, with ASU last year. Like, really anything can happen in this conference. And, adding in all these new names, adding in a new offensive coordinator, I think there's some hope that can be sold on Arizona. But I will say, Justin, in regards to the entirety of this article, I would say that what they wrote about Arizona was probably one of the most scaling, I'd say, like, definitely, like, kind of less positive vibes on Arizona than there was on a lot of these other programs from these anonymous sources here. And I made kind of an impromptu ranking based off of how they described it, how I interpreted what they wrote about each team, with a tiny excerpt from each one. ASU, I think they got the most glaring review, I should say, and it said that they will be on top for a while in this conference. Iowa State, I had at number 2, put in there, could go to the title game again. Baylor was called a title contender with Sawyer Robertson, in their backfield that they have there, one of the elite quarterback running back tandems. Texas Tech, they put in there double-digit wins or failure. And I think that it's weird that I would have put Texas Tech 2 based off that statement alone, but they were more talking about Texas Tech, the fact that they've spent so much money in NIL that they need to see that happen on the field, like positive things happen on the field this year, or else it's a complete failure on Texas Tech's end. But in general, they were saying that they're a good team, but maybe not a great team. Called BYU a legit power, called TCU a surprise conference title team, but also noted that this could be a make or break year for Sonny Dykes. Utah replacing a lot of talent, but kind of I would say the dark horse of this whole group. They didn't really have a whole lot to say regarding Utah. And I think that they're being cautiously optimistic because of what happened last season with Utah, being the favorite for the conference and having such a dreadful year. Kansas, they put in there as a might surprise. They called Colorado a circus, Justin. They said the circus continues at Colorado, and just talked about a lot of the influx and outflux of transfers going on. West Virginia, they said this is an adjustment year for them with Rich Rodriguez coming in first season, but that they could be like a fun team. Houston, the year before the year for Willie Fritz was the kind of the vibe I was getting. Cincinnati, they have the Cincinnati's coach on the hot seat here. UCF, I thought, a lot of people have them as the last place team in the conference. they thought that, this could be a year that they compete for a bowl game with Scott Frost coming back in year one. Then I had Arizona as second bottom to where they said that Arizona could quote unquote steal a few. But I'll be honest, I kind of think that maybe that they were last based off this rankings if I'm looking back on it, because Oklahoma State, they have on here that it could be another losing year, but they also very much talk up Mike Gundy, the job that he's done, the program that he's built, and say that, if they can find a quarterback, that they could be a pretty good football team. I really feel like Arizona might have gotten the worst kind of review going into this season here.
Yeah, and I think it's because of what the anonymous Big 12 assistant coach talked about. It's like, okay, they went 4-8. Oh, by the way, they also lost their best wide receiver. They also lost their best offensive lineman.
Yeah.
They lost a lot of players. And they also had guys go into the transfer portal. Like, they lost a ton of starting talent, which I think if you're Arizona, you don't pay attention to that. What does Nick Saban call it? Rat poison. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, you consume it. It's bad for you. So don't even look at it. And I think that if there's any team that Arizona can learn from, I got to be honest with you, it's the school up north. I had ASU very low last year. A lot of people had ASU low. I mean, they were voted to finish last in the conference. And then next thing you know, they're not only winning the Big 12, but they look pretty damn good in the CFP. How does ASU look this upcoming year? That's the one thing I'm really curious about, because, they had a good team, but Cam Scattaboo was responsible for like 3 of those wins. So, not having Scat Pack back there, how are the Sun Devils going to look? I think they're going to be an interesting team. But yeah, I think Arizona, I mean, they could learn I can't believe I'm saying this, and Arizona fans are probably going to throw up when they hear this, but I think Arizona can learn a lot from ASU. Being one of the teams that's counted out, you can figure out ways to, I guess, prove the doubters wrong. And I think that the offensive line, if they can figure that out, if they could find the best 5-man rotation, I'm really loving what I'm seeing out of the defensive line. I think the interior guys that they have in Tia Savea and Deshaun McKnight, he was awesome in spring this year, was definitely one of the spring standouts, and a guy that's going to be in line to probably be one of Arizona's top defensive players. I know people talk about Stooks and Dalton Johnson and the guys on the back end, but look out for Deshaun McKnight. I think that this could be a guy, when it's all said and done, becomes an NFL draft pick. So, yeah, Arizona, listen, they have some holes that I'm concerned with. We won't get any of these answers until they actually start playing games, but they have the pieces to be a bowl team. And I think, with Noah not having T-Mac anymore, I think the spring has really been amazing for Noah in his development as a quarterback, because he developed those connections with those guys and learned how to play quarterback when T-Mac is not on the field. And, Seth Dagey challenged Noah when he was first hired by Arizona. He, said, hey, you're a great quarterback. We know all the things that you can do. We know that you're a humble hero and you're a guy that, the players rally around because you lead by example, but I need you to really start leading this thing. And, there were moments in spring where the defense was kind of kicking the offense's ass, and they would go into their huddle period or their halftime break. And usually it was Seth Dagey telling everyone like, hey, what are we doing? And, he would rip into the guys. They would make all the corrections, and then they would go do their thing for the second half of practice. But the last week and a half, 2 weeks of spring ball, Noah Fifita took on that leadership role as far as holding the offense accountable. Seth Dagey was about to address the team after they were getting slaughtered by the defense, and Noah told him no, I got it. Trust me. And it was the first time that he saw Noah really, I guess, hold people accountable and kind of, get into some guys. And I think that him showing that was definitely a step in the right direction of him as a leader. He was already a great leader. He was already very humble. But now the fact that he is rallying the troops and holding guys accountable, I think we're going to see Noah take that next step as a leader. And that's what you want to see out of the franchise quarterback in the face of the program. So I think with Noah Fifita under center, I think Arizona is going to be just fine. But like I said, offensive line, that is my only concern. And another thing that I'm really excited about regarding this offense is tight ends, man. Freaking 13 personnel, 3 tight ends when they get inside that red zone. Expect to see it. And, they're going to be, having some formations where it's, spread out and it looks like a Mike Leach offense. And then there's going to be situations to where they bring in 3 tight ends and it's going to look like Arizona is the University of Michigan with Jim Harbaugh. And that's the versatility, the multi-dimensional offense. That's what you love to see out of the Arizona Wildcats. So I agree with Athlon and their write-up. I think it's a fair assessment, but I wouldn't write off Arizona just yet.
Yeah, I think Noah Fifita, just his experience, his leadership, he raises the floor of this team to the extent where it's just like Arizona's not going to be just I don't think maybe the worst of the worst. I think they'll be a competitive team going into this season, especially with the addition of Seth Dagey. Despite really not being very competitive in the Big 12 at all last year. But, I think this conference that's what makes this conference fun, is that it's so up in the air. It's, I think you could make the argument that 7 different teams end up winning the Big 12 championship at the end of this season. I'm not sure that there's another conference in America that top to bottom is really so close together. I made the take the other day that I think the first place team and the last place team in the Big 12 are closer than in any other conference. Like in the SEC, that's a 70-point football game. If you got a Georgia going up against a Vanderbilt in a October football game in Athens, I would expect that game to be a million. It's a video game score. Whereas I think that the Big 12, you see it with ASU in that preseason ranking, the margin is just so much smaller in the Big 12. But Justin, I did want to get into a little bit of basketball recruiting and talk Arizona's Eugene Regional for the upcoming NCAA baseball tournament. We'll get into that right after our last ad break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast. But first, friends, I wanted to talk about Circle K. Circle K, of course, because this is an Arizona Wildcats podcast. That means that there's a Circle K on every single corner across this entire state. I love Circle K. I actually need to gas up right now. Kevin would be very disappointed in me. My gas light is on, but thankfully we have a Circle K that is right down the street from the office with the cheapest gas that you'll find in the valley, in Arizona, anywhere. And of course, I use my Inner Circle Rewards membership to save even more cents off per gallon. I'm saving 5 cents off because I'm a premium member of the Inner Circle. When you sign up, you'll save 3 cents off per gallon until you get that 5 cent threshold. But to start that thing off, you're going to get 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. And that's some money that is really going to add up. They also have fuel days that go on where you'll save 40 cents off per gallon. And of course, they have all of their different snacks, energy drinks, beverages, everything that you can buy with the Inner Circle and save some money with that. Join the Inner Circle today. It's so easy. It takes 2 seconds to sign up on your phone. You just put your emails, choose a password, you're signed up, and it is a great way to save money. So join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. And of course, I'm repping my Brandon Bills hat today. Got my Brandon Bills hat on. You can't go anywhere these days, especially sporting events, without seeing people rocking branded Bills. And that's because people are starting to figure out that Branded Bills is the most comfortable and most stylish headwear brand that you could possibly wear. And we're going to help you save some money here with our friends at Branded Bills by giving you a promo code of BBPHNX. It's going to save you 10% off that first purchase. So whether it's a snapback, trucker, fitted, even a beanie or a t-shirt, Brandon Bills has you covered. They, of course, have their U of A campus collection. I'm rocking the Cactus logo hat right now. You'll see it on the court in McHale Center in this upcoming basketball season. But also, why not just rep it in your everyday life like I'm doing today? They also partner with the Phoenix Suns if that's up your alley. But, they're a local company based out of Mesa, Arizona. They love supporting the Arizona Wildcats. Go check out their special campus collection they have out at the bookstore. Absolutely phenomenal stuff. Head to brandonbills.com. Use code BBPHNX for 10% off that first order. Well, Justin, you were talking a little bit of Arizona baseball with your buddies, it sounds, getting a College World Series pool going. But I guess just how locked in on Arizona's, Big 12 tournament run, Big 12 championship, and into their selection process, how locked in have you been?
Man, the playoff bananas are back. It's cool to see the playoff bananas back in the dugout. I didn't know this, but they ran out of bananas during, I think, the BYU game, and they actually had an Instacart order to Globe Life Field for more bananas, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, Arizona baseball, they're in a really good spot right now. I was really concerned with them going into the Big 12 tournament because, they lost the series to Utah. They got smoked in that first game to Houston. I mean, they're dropping games to teams that are considered one of the worst in the Big 12. And, they're in the bottom half. So you're like, man, Arizona, they're fighting for, maybe hosting a regional, and they're over here losing to these bad opponents. Like, that's not what you want to see out of a team at that point of the season. But I think that they were, fatigued. They were banged up. There was just a lot that happened at the end of the regular season. And in their first Big 12 tournament action, they wanted to prove themselves. And so they came out and they were dominant. I think probably the biggest noticeable thing about Arizona, outside of Mason White freaking being a powerful hitter and now being second all time in career home runs at the U of A, but pitching. I mean, Owen Krimkowski stunk it up when Arizona played against Clemson to start the year at Globe Life Field, and then he pitched a shutout and only allowed a few hits. Smith Bailey, who's got two last names. I thought as a young pitcher, he was great. And then Tony Pluta is the best closer in all of college baseball. You can argue with your mother on that. The pitching was awesome. Only 3 runs in the Big 12 baseball tournament. That's what you want to see out of a team going into the postseason. I really thought they should have hosted, winning the Big 12. I mean, a Big 12 champion is not hosting a regional for the first time since 1999, when everyone on this Arizona baseball team wasn't even born yet. I thought they should have deserved to host, but they get to go up and play against their old Pac-12 buddy in Oregon. And I'm high on the Wildcats. I'm really liking the way they're playing right now.
Yeah, and they've played well against that top-level competition as well, which I think you love to see. They've somewhat elevated their game when they have shown up and played, the Texas A&Ms of the world, or, the West Virginias of the world. They really ponied up in those moments, and so I think that that's the sign of a team that really could go all the way. And I think that this team does have a College World Series ceiling. Like, I think that's entirely possible. I don't know if they have the pitching necessarily to win the whole damn thing. But I really do think that they have the bats where they could get hot at the right time. But to your point, they pitched well to end this season out, despite their poor series against Utah, their poor series, and I say that they win 2 games out of 3, but their somewhat poor series against Houston as well, losing a game to Houston, who's not a very good team. But yeah, it feels like that this team has the pieces in place to make that deep run if they're going to get there, and can they be the first Chip Hale team to show some postseason success? I know Arizona fans are calling out for it. How do we feel about the teams in the regional, Justin? Because you obviously have an old rival in Oregon, who Arizona and Oregon have had a very back and forth baseball history. If you look at the all-time record, I believe Arizona leads by just 2 games, which you could see technically erased in this regional alone. Because there's a good chance that Oregon and Arizona play each other twice. But you also have Cal Poly, who is a really good team, beat UC Irvine in the Big West Championship. So I guess, how are you feeling about the opponents that Arizona got matched up with?
Don't sleep on Cal Poly, man. Do not sleep on Cal Poly, because this was a team that in the Big West baseball tournament, they got absolutely rocked by UC Irvine. And then they turned around and beat UC Irvine in the Big West Baseball Championship. So this is a team that has grit. They've got a lot of fight. And if there's anything that Chip Hale's Wildcats can learn from, don't take these smaller teams don't treat them like they're anything less, because you know what? GCU, they had absolutely no fear, and they took care of business against Arizona. So learn from the past. Now that you're on the road, hey, you got something to prove. You thought you should have been a host of a regional. Okay, go out and prove that by not putting up a stinker. Oregon's a really good team. They're one of 2 Big Ten teams to host this year, along with UCLA. So you got Oregon, you got UCLA out of the Big Ten hosting on the West Coast. And I think it's cool to see old Pac-12 foes meet up with each other, because with the conference realignment, if there was still the Pac-12, I mean, you're not going to see Arizona and Oregon in the same regional. That just wouldn't happen. So now with conference realignment, you get to see these old West Coast teams match up against each other. But yeah, these are some really good teams. And, starting with Cal Poly on Friday, I think the Wildcats certainly have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. Arizona fans, we love our baseball, we love our softball, it's been a minute since there's been a deep baseball run, post Jay Johnson here. But yeah, I think it's finally time for the Cats to use the momentum that they built at the end of this season, winning the Big 12 title, going into the tournament. I believe those first games start on Friday. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Friday, 1 p.m. You can watch that game on ESPN Plus.
Yep. We will be there, and at PHNX_Wildcats on Twitter. We will be tweeting out, live tweeting the game, all the clips that you need to see. But Justin, real quick, this is the last thing we're going to hit before we get out of here. Arizona loses one of its top targets for the 2026 basketball cycle. Elijah Williams, son of Monty Williams, as you can see there on screen if you're watching with us on YouTube, commits to Baylor over U of A. Cal was one of the teams as well listed. Missouri, Notre Dame. I've heard that this was somewhat of a religious recruitment, that Monty Williams is a guy who speaks about his faith, is very grounded in his faith, and so I believe that Baylor, being a Christian school, somewhat put this over the top. I think that's why a school like Notre Dame was also involved in this process. But yeah, Arizona loses out on top 50 prospect in Elijah Williams. Comes from obviously a very big basketball family with Monty Williams, 6'6", 200 pounds in the 2026 class. Number 45 prospect according to 24/7 Sports, 36 according to their composite rating. So yeah, really good player. Arizona, I feel like Tommy Lloyd throughout his tenure has really limited the number of offers that he sends out. If you're watching with us, head on over to Overtime as the party continues over there. We will get Justin back on screen here as well. So Tommy has sent out very minimal offers. He's a type of coach where I feel, when he sends you an offer, it's because he wants you to commit. Like, I think at that moment, he's perfectly fine with you committing. I think in college sports, a lot of the times we see like what is considered an uncommittable offer, which is a school has some interest in you. They send you a formal offer, but if they don't necessarily want you to commit on that right away. This class, though, Tommy, I believe, has 7 offers that he's sent out in this 2026 class, because Arizona figures to lose a lot of players from this year's roster going into next season. You'll have Jaden Bradley, Tobe Awaka as seniors. You'll have guys like Koa Pete, Braden Burries, who you expect to probably only spend 1 season at the school. Dwayne Aristode could surprise like a Carter Bryant potentially. So, there's a lot of moving parts on this roster. Do you take much stock into losing out on one of these top targets so early on in the process, or is this just one of those situations where, there's a lot of spots that are going to be open? Tommy's going to send out a lot more offers in this cycle than usual, which, inherently you're going to miss out on a couple more prospects than you're typically used to as an Arizona fan.
Yeah, I wouldn't push the panic button on this, just because, and heck, there could be, guys that we think are going to the NBA decide to come back, right? Maybe Braden Burries is a 2-3 year guy. We don't know where he stands. So I think, if we're talking at this time next year and Arizona's roster is kind of depleted and they have lots of holes they still need to fill, and it's slim pickings in the portal and they're just kind of relying on international prospects. Yes. And speaking of which, international prospects, right? I mean, now that Tommy Lloyd is the head coach at Arizona and Jack Murphy, Tommy Lloyd's right-hand man, who was initially on Sean Miller's staff, he recruited guys like Azuolas Tubelis and Benedict Mathurin. And I mean, ever since then, he's gotten, great international prospects. The guys that Arizona added for 2025, a big part of that was because of Jack Murphy and what he was able to do. So I think Arizona, they're a big time brand. People flocked to Arizona. They're not gonna have any issues whatsoever getting recruits. So yes, you miss out on Monty Williams' kid, but I don't think it's time to push the panic button just yet for Arizona. And they still have some other really good prospects too. I think Brandon McCoy, right? He's out there as well. Cameron Holmes, he's a really good player too. So, even though that, Arizona has more offers in 2026 than what we've seen, I don't think it's people should push the panic button because they miss out on Monty Williams' kid. I think Arizona's in a good place.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, you mentioned a couple of them there. Brandon McCoy, number 2 recruit according to 24/7. Cameron Holmes, number 12, and an Arizona guy as well. Plays over at Millennium and Goodyear. And then you have Christian Collins, Cameron Williams, just to name a few else. Christian Collins playing at the same high school as Brandon McCoy in the number 3 prospect. So you have the number 2 and 3 prospects in the country, both playing for St. John Bosco. I'm sure they got a pretty solid team over there. But yeah, I agree with you, Justin. I think it's just a situation where, there's going to be some more offers this year. To the point I was making early on when talking about Elijah Williams, it does feel that, there's somewhat of a religious aspect at play in this recruitment that they have spoken about that as a family, like that was important to them, and potentially seeking out a religious school was important. So, I don't, I wouldn't say that there's really too much negative to go bank off of regarding this move, but definitely, it goes to show that you do have to set the table early on in the process, get a couple guys in the door, and that'll, hopefully help be a catalyst for getting some of the later guys in the process, like, the guys that start help recruiting for you, right? We see it with Noah Fifita on our football team all the time. It's invaluable to have people that are also, putting in the recruiting hours outside of the coaches. So yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not concerned yet, but definitely a really big time prospect. And the other aspect of this is he goes to a Big 12 school. So not only do you lose out on him, but you lose him to, one of the teams that you expect to be one of the top contenders in the Big 12 for the foreseeable future when it comes to basketball. I will ask you this, Justin. Is this a power play by Monty Williams to become the next Baylor head basketball coach?
Oh, man, I don't know about that. Man, I don't want to say yes, but man, I don't know. That's tough.
That's the Arizona coping that we'll do. Well, Tommy's spot is locked up, so of course he didn't want to come to Arizona. He's going to go to Baylor where he can be the head coach. But no, Scott Drew's a great coach.
I was like, Scott Drew's pretty locked in there.
Yeah, that was very tongue-in-cheek. Scott Drew, national champion. But yeah, choosing Baylor over Arizona. Another quick basketball thing before we get out of here. Ben Mathurin, great game last night. Love to see it. 12 minutes, 20 points against the Knicks. Pivotal game 4. Pacers now up 3-1. And I think we can consider the Pacers to be Arizona's team, right? TJ McConnell, Ben Mathurin. What's enough?
Yeah, I mean, there's no other team that's got Arizona Wildcats on it right now. So, those two representing the U of A. And, I mean, 2 great stories. Benedict Mathurin was a guy that really went under the radar and didn't get attention until he went to it's called Basketball Without Borders, or, there was some like NBA international like showcase where there
NBA
were
Academy, right?
NBA Academy. Yes, that's what it is. And I think he went down to Mexico, if I'm not mistaken, and balled out there and got some attention from some big time basketball programs. And speaking of Baylor, Benedict Mathurin was actually he almost went to Baylor to play for Scott Drew. Like it was like a 51-49% thing going on between Arizona and Baylor. So the Wildcats lucked out with Ben. And then he developed into this great player. And someone in the comments mentioned Aaron Gordon as a Wildcat. Yes, we love Aaron Gordon, but he's not in the playoffs anymore. The Denver Nuggets are bounced.
Sadly.
So yeah, the only team left is the Indiana Pacers. But going back to Ben, is when he got to Arizona, he didn't start right away. He was actually the backup to Dalen Terry, and then when Tommy Lloyd comes around, they decided to, in the second half of the season, I think Ben started to get more playing time. It really started to show his potential. And then when Tommy came around, he was inserted into the starting lineup and then became this great player, became a top 10 pick. And I thought that Ben Mathurin at this point would be one of the faces of the Indiana Pacers. And he is, but I'm talking like the face of the franchise.
Yeah.
That title belongs to Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. Aaron Nesmith is great. Nembhard is also a great player as well. But Benedict Mathurin is such a great player off the bench for the Pacers, and he's so strong. And I think he has settled in nicely into his reserve role. And then T.J. McConnell, when he was coming out of the U of A, the only person that believed he was going to be an NBA player was Sean Miller. Yep. I didn't think TJ was an NBA player. I was okay, he's gonna have a nice career in Lithuania, maybe play some years in Turkey with Nick Johnson, and he's gonna make a lot of money playing overseas. Well, come to find out, he's made a lot of money playing in the NBA, and he is a true underdog story, going from a guy that went to Duquesne and then went to Arizona, was a 2-year starter, should have been Pac-12 Player of the Year. And I'm just so happy to see him have this NBA career and getting inducted into the Ring of Honor, because that was the only way he'd be inducted into the McHale Center Ring of Honor is if he played 10 seasons in the NBA. They did that. And you know what's so cool about TJ getting inducted into the Ring of Honor and Benedict Mathurin getting inducted in the Ring of Honor? They got inducted in back-to-back seasons. You know what the common denominator with those two ceremonies? Every single member of the Indiana Pacers was in the house. Every single player, Rick Carlisle, those guys supported. And that culture that they've built brick by brick over the last few seasons, it's now starting to pay off. And, man, we're going to be seeing Indiana versus OKC in the NBA Finals, man. I mean, this might be the first NBA Finals where a majority of the fan base refers to dinner as supper. It's crazy.
That's a good one there at the end. But yeah, I think it's interesting in the NBA because it's been such a super team league, and in particular a big market league, right? But Adam Silver has really gone through measures to make sure that the OKCs and the Indianas of the world can compete at this level, similar to the way that the NFL operates, right? Where you can have a Chiefs Bills AFC Championship game, and that's the game that everybody wants to see. Is the game where you have two of the smallest markets in football. The Green Bay Packers play big games all the time. Like, I think that's the environment the NBA wants to cultivate. Move off of this super team kind of notion a little bit, and Indiana, the Pacers are a perfect example of that being encapsulated, right? They play like a 10-man rotation. They're very deep. They Rick Carlisle. They have tons of young players at their disposal. They have two Arizona Wildcats at the helm there with TJ McConnell, who I remember Sean Miller saying that he was going to be a 10-year NBA veteran, and like Arizona fans, even people that love TJ McConnell would take a bullet for the guy, or like, okay, Sean, sounds good. TJ McConnell just hits his 10th season this year, and doesn't look to be really slowing down too much either. And profiles as a type of player, right, that TJ could probably do this for 8 more seasons at the exact same level. Like, what's going to change about his game as he gets older? He's still going to be pesky and annoying, and the exact same type of player. Ben Mathurin, definitely a little bit more of that young, springy, athletic type of guy. Has he had the run yet? Maybe you'd like to see a Ben Mathurin talent get. No, there's a lot of depth around him, a lot of players that he's vying for opportunity with that are very good players, but a key cog on a team that has been very successful these last two years nonetheless, and we'll continue to watch them. Last thing, I know I keep saying that, but Devin Nett's named an All-American by D1. softball, which is very cool. One of the 6 utility players on first team, only Arizona player on first or second team. She adds it to her Big 12 Player of the Year accolade. And Nets, of course, did it all for Arizona this year. Led in pitching innings, led in wins, complete games, appearances, strikeouts, was second in ERA and second on the team in home runs. Just an unbelievable season from Devin Nets there, and a great career as well.
I'm going to keep this very short because my drywall guy has been waiting outside for the last 10 minutes in his car. I'm trying to get some holes in my wall fixed. I swear it was for house projects, not me, raging and being upset that my favorite sports team lost. But yeah, no, I mean, Devin Nets is she's the Shohei Ohtani of college softball. I mean, she got it done in the circle. She got it done at the plate. The only Arizona player to hit a home run and pitch a perfect game all in the same night. She's great. Arizona's missing out on a big-time player. I wish that she had a better ending to her Arizona career. Yeah. That regional was a little rough, but she's a great player. She's also a great person, and she's going to be in that Athletes Unlimited softball league playing for the Bandits. And softball's booming in the United States right now, and it's a great time to be a softball player. How do they replace Devin Nets? How do they replace Aisa Silva, who just committed to ASU? Arizona, they have the nucleus. I mean, Dakota Kennedy, Jenna Sniffen, Schottmeyer, like they have a lot of great players on their team. They just need arms. They need pitchers in the worst way. So yeah, I think that as they go into the portal, they're going to look to add those arms. But yeah, losing a player like Devin Nets is definitely a big time loss for Arizona.
Yeah, and Aisa Silva, who enters the portal and figured to be a big arm for them next year, commits to ASU, which is certainly interesting. But he is the great Justin Spears. He, of course, has to attend to some of his home-owning needs right now. But you can follow Justin at Justin E Sports. You can check out his work at Tucson.com for the Arizona Daily Star. You can also check him out on Spears and Ali daily every weekday morning from 7 to 9 a.m. Thanks so much for your time, Justin. We appreciate you, as always, when you come on with us.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. And I just recently wrote a story on former Arizona basketball player Joseph Blair. He's opening up courts in Tucson, Arizona on the behalf of his late mother, Judith Blair, a.k.a. Mama Blair. If any of you guys want to donate and help out with these courts, Kyle Kuzma has already donated $25,000 to this project. JB is trying to raise $250K. So if you want to help out a former Arizona Wildcat and get these courts built at Palo Verde Park, Judith Blair Memorial Courts, find my story at Tucson.com. You can also donate at JudithBlairCourts.com. But thank you guys. Appreciate the time.
Yeah. Make sure you guys go check out that article from Justin, and we will catch you next week, Justin, on the AZ Wildcats podcast. I am, of course, Damon Fairall. We're going to get you out of here on this. Kevin will be back tomorrow, hopefully. Or will he? Or was he fired? Who knows? That is still very much up in the air. But like I said, we will be back on a Thursday at noon, as always. Hopefully coming to you with some guests throughout the rest of the week. We will see. But thank you so much for all of those that tuned in today. You can follow me at Damon Dog. That is DAWG. You can follow Kevin at KevoPost, KEVOPOSTS. Send him some tweets on his off day. Let him know you're thinking about him and you missed him today. You can follow Justin at Justin E Sports. As I already said, follow our account at PHNX_Wildcats. Of course, like this video. A little light on the likes today, guys. I know Kevin usually can't sleep when the likes are light, but I think it's because it's just me today that I'm going to wear it extra hard, when I'm sleeping later tonight. So make sure you guys help me out. Throw some likes my way. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And we will be back tomorrow at noon on the AZ Wildcats podcast. But until then, peace out, bear down, and go Cats.
We all silly like the mayor.